I arrived in a taxi. The gentle momentum of tire on tarmac was something I had heard 1,000 times over in the waking world. But for some reason, here on my two tiny screens, the sound felt so alien. I neglected to really read the dialogue options. That part of my brain didn't seem to hold any ground until I was much older. But I do remember giving a name and a destination, and then I remember a pause. This is a trailer for Animal Crossing Wild World. Here are the search results on YouTube, the subreddit for the series, and the fandom wiki. And in contrast, here is everything my preteen self had seen about the game before actually playing it. A .png printed on the cover of the box. It's crazy to think back to it now. As of today, I've been to the edges of Hyrule and Lordran. I've invaded every pursed butt crack in Empire City, the New World, the Old Gods, the temples, tombs, gardens, and seas. I've not been around the world, I've been around countless worlds. Inside, outside, upside down, and I've played every single Patapons game, all three of them. Yes, I'm looking at Ratatan. All of that. But at the time, this tiny little town felt impossibly large. I feel like Animal Crossing is a gateway for many gamers. Often the words action, combat, and enemies are synonymous with gaming. Always something to chase, something to win, something to slay, something to master. And then, this simple world asks that you just look around. It gives you a couple of clear goals, a house to furnish and renovate, a land to explore and cultivate, but ultimately very little in the form of direct instruction. Animal Crossing functions more like a relationship. This game will show some of its more overt qualities on its face, but time and personal investment are required to find the real depth of value under it all. And I mean, real-world time. As many of you will know, pause, my mum watches these videos. So as it turns out, some of you don't know. So mum, this is for you. Approximately 15 years ago, you bought me a video game for my Nintendo DS. This game was called Animal Crossing Wild World, a game in which you take the position of a youngster moving to start your new life as a resident in a village inhabited by friendly, anthropomorphic animals. Seagulls manage the post office, tanukis and hedgehogs facilitate the sale of goods and services, and every villager is a potential companion. You can write each other letters and celebrate each other's birthdays, and just be friends. In the town, you will spend your time catching local wildlife, foraging the spoils of the land, and expressing yourself through fashion and furnishing. And these games tell you to do very little of this. You're forced to take out a mortgage on a home, which thrusts you into the goal of eventually paying off that mortgage if you'd like to renovate your home, but otherwise, the game is extremely open, expecting the player to decide for themselves what action will constitute as meaningful or interesting gameplay. Animal Crossing operates in real time. If it's 5 PM in real life, then it's 5 PM in the game. If it's New Year's Eve and fireworks are booming outside your window, you can boot up the game and find a similar celebration digitally. And rather intelligently, the game offers you things that it would make sense to come back daily for. Every day a new round of furniture is available for purchase, more fossils appear underground, new villagers could move in, and the various facilities in your village could be upgraded. Your little town develops, and with it, a relationship grows around it. You decide what actions to prioritize and which villages to get close to. And the first time you experience this is like magic. It's this meditative, tailored experience that feels like it resets your brain chemistry, primes you to receive great joy from small pedestrian occurrences, a letter from your in-game mother, a new hair accessory that just completes your look, or the simple act of loading into a world and having 2 to 3 simple, achievable tasks to do every day. This is Animal Crossing. And during the 2020 lockdown, many people were using it as a comforting simulacrum of some of the social experiences they were missing out on while the world was ending. Animal Crossing New Horizons released on the 20th of March 2020 to what I recall being critical acclaim, and if you're going by sales figures, this cannot be disputed. New Horizons is the second best-selling game on the entire Nintendo Switch system, with almost 45 million units being sold as of December 2023. To try and contextualize some of that success, the Nintendo Switch sold 139 million units, which is roughly a 37% increase in sales when compared to the 101 million units that the Nintendo Wii sold, but the Animal Crossing game on Switch sold 10 times the units than the Wii's Animal Crossing equivalent game, Animal Crossing City Folk. In lifetime sales, City Folk only got 4.32 million units. So what changed? Well, I'm not going to answer that question yet, because that's not the story I'm trying to tell. I've spoken about what you do in the game, but what I actually want to answer is, what is Animal Crossing about? Hey, quick segue. My name is Robbert van Dongen, and as you may have noticed, this is a brand new channel. My old channel cultivated a very different audience with very different content. That channel still exists. You can go there and watch all of my old Pokemon content since before I got my first stretch mark. This channel, this new channel, RVD, Robbert van Dongen, this is where I intend to be producing all of my best work. If you like what you see here, please consider subscribing. Engage with the video, like, comment, that really helps me out. And if you really like what I do, it would be amazing if you'd consider chucking me just a single $1 every time I release a video on Patreon, which means not even every month, just whenever I release a video. That's like $1 every 4 months or something. Thank you for your time. Back to the video. This is how Animal Crossing was conceived. A single field. In a 2003 developer interview, when asked how did Animal Crossing first come to be, series creator Katsuya Eguchi said,
"It began life as an N64 project. Then we came up with the concept for a game where you hang out and do stuff with a bunch of people in a single field. Then one by one, we started coming up with more and more ideas, and Animal Crossing is really just the collection of all those different strands."
While later games would go on to add a few additional destinations like islands and high streets, something that would remain through every single title is the small village that you will be spending most of your time. The majority of your in-game time is spent on a stretch of land small enough to cross the length of in 3 to 4 minutes. In my own mind, I categorize Animal Crossing under a game genre called self-expression, where the game world itself can be extrapolated to be a sort of canvas. Dropping into somebody's Animal Crossing village can tell you a lot about what they prioritize, how clean things are, if things look heavily decorated or more utilitarian. Self-expression in more traditional games mostly comes down to skill expression, the methodology or mastery of in-game systems that one uses to solve problems. When encountering a tricky combat encounter or a difficult platforming puzzle, what two players choose to do differently will often fall under a skill expression. But in games like Minecraft, Stardew Valley, and Animal Crossing, the player more often than not decides for themselves what a problem even is. Opening up Animal Crossing and saying, "My town needs to have more flowers," or "I want a collection of fossils," is the equivalent of an artist saying, "This painting needs more blue." So your gameplay will be informed by your desire to express yourself, your priorities, and your tastes. So that's the mechanical setting for Animal Crossing. Someone asked the question, how many things can you do in a single finite place? And every suggestion became all the moving parts for the gameplay, the fishing, the furniture, the fossils. Let's talk about the heart of it all. In 1986, Mr. Eguchi moved over 300 miles from his hometown of Chiba to work at Nintendo's Kyoto headquarters, a career decision that would put a great distance between himself and his friends and family. In doing so, it brought into focus the real value of the little bits of life we get to experience with those close to us. And at this time, Mr. Eguchi would be 21. 21 years old. I want to tell you what it was like when I moved out. It was this flat where I filmed some of my earliest videos. This is where all the first bits of the old Ragnarok channel were recorded, edited, and published. I was 19. I lived off Little Noodles and Choco Duo. Nutrition was not a word I understood, and I barely got by. The supposed age of adulthood in the UK is 18. At this age, you can buy cigarettes, join the army, and star in as much pornography as you can cast. And I can say with confidence that anyone who was once 18 knows that at 18 you are not an adult. To be clear, I'm not making the case that any laws should be changed. 19 was a fine age for me to get my start with the support structure I had, but it's more to say that at that age, you are a bird with so little feathers, it's new and difficult and terrifying. I moved out when I was 19 and I've been making my own way in the world for 9 years now. Sometimes I look at the characters of Animal Crossing, the home-owning, independent living age characters of Animal Crossing, and I think, how old are these people meant to be? Look at the Animal Crossing movie. Look at this baby-ass baby scrambling her actual noodles around, almost excited at the prospect of a fucking day job. She is so ignorant, she is impossibly optimistic, and she's just like me. Or just like I was. A kid cosplaying as an adult for the first time. That's what things are in your first few years of doing it on your own. The English translation has a really interesting line. I say the English translation because I asked my Japanese-speaking friend for a translation of the actual Japanese spoken in the scene, and it doesn't quite match up. Nevertheless, I, the protagonist of the Animal Crossing movie, like me, arrives in a taxi, with eyes wider than the sea and stars, and Captain, the driver, notices that she seems to contain all the potential energy of a hard light afterburner. After bearing witness to her gusto, he says, "Yar yar, wandering age." I'd been seeking an answer to the question, how old is the player character in Animal Crossing? There it is. An age old enough to see more of the world. There is this word, a word that some other video essay somewhere foisted into my lexicon. The word is Bildungsroman. The word refers to a genre of media, a German word that's similar to our phrase coming of age, but a Bildungsroman doesn't specifically concern children. It points to a more overall spiritual education, often aimed at an older audience. I believe that Animal Crossing is both a coming of age and a Bildungsroman. It's a musing on what actualization might look like, a taste of what's to come. For kids, it's an opportunity to practice adulthood in the safest and friendliest possible setting. You pay a mortgage, you engage with strange people in new places, and you do it almost entirely alone. And for adults, it's a place to plant yourself, a place to prioritize connection and self-expression, a place to enjoy routine and simplicity, something that can be really hard to facilitate in the real world sometimes. It's a vision of the good life. And while this may just be a coincidence, I think that Animal Crossing's history shows a similar journey in the development of its gameplay. The earlier Animal Crossing games contained playable characters that were basically chibi, diminutive, childlike little beings who were more limited in their capacity to express themselves when compared with what would come to pass. When making the move from Animal Crossing City Folk on the Wii up to the likes of Animal Crossing New Leaf and New Horizons on Nintendo 3DS and Switch respectively, the player moves from just being a simple villager to being a town mayor, and the scope of their responsibility stretches to so much more than their own home. And alongside this change came a radical update to the presentation of the player. Gone are the days of looking like a little Earthbound guy. These characters look old, but still soft and simple enough to extrapolate any age onto them. They're quite intelligently designed in that respect. They're an avatar for any age to inhabit and go for a wander. Like many avenues of gaming, the fanbase has grown up with the games. When the development team were making the earlier games, in addition to expecting a younger audience to be playing the games, I think they made the decision to add in a lot more paternalistic aspects to the game. A big example is the character Mr. Rossetti, a mole who verbally scolds your player character for resetting the game. In most Animal Crossing games, he exists as a way to disincentivize the player from quitting the game without saving. The game has this underpinning philosophy that you have to stick with the decisions that you've made, and that abusing the very video gamey ability to go back on your bad actions by not saving your data and just reloading a previous save state isn't part of the spirit of what Animal Crossing is. Prepare yourselves for a long quote here, but in Animal Crossing Wild World, after your second offense of leaving the game without saving, Mr. Rossetti says,
"Turning the power off because you didn't get an item that you really, really wanted. Or trying to backtrack to avoid some kind of sticky situation. That's pathetic. Come on, Rob. Stop playing like that. Stop living like that. I mean, grow up, will ya? You're better than this. You know anybody who's got a perfect life? Course not, because nothing's perfect. So I'll say it one more time and hope you'll really hear me this time. Mistakes and disappointment make the sweet things in life that much sweeter. You gotta take everything life throws at you. Roll with the punches. Hear me? Deal with the consequences of your actions, cause life ain't no video game.
Reading this all now, while I know what I know, makes it look hilarious. But could you imagine being an 8 to 13-year-old reading through this? Having your video game actually do this to you? At the time, this would be incredibly transgressive. A less abrasive example is the character of Tom Nook. The internet would have you believe that he's some kind of money-hungry capitalist, and while I do have strong opinions regarding landlords, it would be more accurate to see Tom Nook as a well-meaning authority figure in the games, who introduces the player character to responsibilities and obligations. In the earliest Animal Crossing games, Tom Nook will both sell you your house and offer you short-term employment to serve as like a beginner tutorial for the games. He also functions as the game's primary vendor for you and all the other villagers. The player character will spend an extremely large portion of their in-game time in mortgage debt to this character. However, in an interview by The Verge in 2020, New Horizons director I'm just going to keep that mistake in. New Horizons director Aya Kyogoku said the following.
Even if you borrow money from him and it takes time to pay him back, he never gets angry. So, if we could all try to be a little more responsible and pay him back, it might make him a little happier.
In both a gameplay and narrative sense, a big part of Tom Nook's role is to guide the player's actions in a way that seems conducive to getting the most out of the game. By having a debt to pay off, the player is encouraged to actually engage with things in the game that make you money. Catching fish, finding fossils, growing fruit. This is a huge part of the gameplay loop for Animal Crossing. However, narratively, their influence over the player is best portrayed in the Animal Crossing movie, where even against the protests of I, the protagonist, he's extremely quick to just put her to work, saying,
"The quickest way for you to get used to your new life in Animal Village is by working."
In their own ways, these two characters provide a lot of external influence on the player character. But again, as both the games and the suspected age of the players playing the games gets older, these two characters develop and their positions move away from being authority figures over to more like contemporaries, I guess. In a gaming landscape where autosaving is the norm, Mr. Rossetti is out of a job. He has nothing to do. So canonically, he's moved to an entirely different line of work. And Tom Nook, while still being your mortgage provider, has to now work alongside the player character rather than above them. As you take on the job of mayor in the New Leaf game, Tom Nook's job of providing houses for other villagers directly serves the same goals as you of improving and populating your town. And in the New Horizons game, the pair of you are basically business partners working as a team to turn an empty island into a bustling home for villagers and businesses. And I think there's something really pretty about the contextual framing of this. I love that kids will have been playing this game and being treated like kids, and adults are now playing this game and being treated like adults. All of this is to say that Animal Crossing is a game that believes in me. Across the history of its development, I think there's an incredible amount of intentionality in its execution. All the villagers who were mean to you in the first game, the debt that you have to pay off every single time, the work ethic that it instills in you. On the face of it, you wouldn't think that the game asks much of you when compared to the likes of that stuff. But the game quite literally shoulders you with responsibility and turns it into gameplay. The game trusts that you'll buy into its ethos of slow rewards, incremental discovery, and simple charm, to love and care for your neighbours and the world around you, to live with as much creativity and intentionality as the people who made the game in the first place. It would be a pointless task to try and pin down the one thing that I'm going to say that this game is about, but when I trace the length of my island, surrounded by landmarks that I've made and villagers that I've nurtured a connection with, I think Animal Crossing is a series about finding your place in the world and flourishing. And I love it. Don't you love love a good video essay. That is, if you'd even call it a fucking essay. Good afternoon, video gamers. It is me, the producer, editor, writer, the guy who made that video. I'm here at the end of the video to remind you that this is a brand new YouTube channel. I'm gonna turn off the voice, don't worry about it. Hey, I'm a creator. I make videos. I don't make videos very often, but I have things that I want to say, things that I want to do, things that I want to make. And it seems as though some of you want to be along for the ride. Here is where you will find me trying to make all that happen. The RVD channel. I don't want to hide behind a name. I want to be proud of what I make, and I want to put my name on it. This is what this is about. So for those of you watching, thank you so much. For those of you supporting me on Patreon, thank you extra so much. I will be around to make more stuff, however long it takes me. Speak to you soon.